Imagine you're in the middle of a conversation in English. Someone turns to you and asks something simple, like, "What did you do over the weekend?" In your mind, you actually know exactly what you want to say. But before a single word makes it out of your mouth, something slow and exhausting happens inside your head. First, you take that question and quietly translate it into your native language, just to fully understand it. Then, you form your answer, still in your native language. And finally, you translate that answer, word by word, back into English, trying desperately to remember the right grammar along the way. By the time you're actually ready to speak, several long, awkward seconds have already passed. And when the words finally come out, they sound hesitant, stiff, a little robotic. Not at all like the fluent, natural version of you that exists inside your head. This is what's known as the mental translation lag, and it is one of the biggest invisible walls standing between you and real fluency. It makes even simple sentences feel like hard work. Most learners assume the fix is a bigger vocabulary or more grammar lessons. Just one more course, one more app, one more list of words. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Learning more words will not fix this problem. In some cases, it actually makes things worse, because now you have even more words competing inside your head during that slow translation process. If you want to speak English smoothly, the real goal isn't more vocabulary. It's training your brain to stop translating altogether and instead connect your thoughts directly to English words without that detour through your first language. Today, we're going to look closely at why translation slows you down so much, and then walk through 2 practical drills that will retrain your brain to think directly in English. Let's start by understanding exactly why this translation habit does so much damage. When you translate from your native language into English, you're essentially treating English as a secret code, something that needs to be decoded and re-encoded every single time you want to say anything. But languages simply don't work this way. Every language has its own internal logic, its own rhythm, its own way of organizing the world. There usually isn't a clean, perfect one-to-one match between 2 languages. When you force a word-for-word mental translation, 2 serious problems show up. The first problem is speed, or rather, the complete lack of it. Your brain has to pull a concept out of memory, locate the matching word in your native language, then search for the English equivalent, then organize the correct grammar around it, and only then send the signal to your mouth to actually speak. That's an enormous amount of processing, happening in just a few seconds. It's a bit like trying to run a demanding, modern program on an old, outdated computer. The system slows down, overheats, and sometimes just freezes completely. That's exactly what that painful mental blank feels like when you're mid-conversation. The second problem is grammar. Because you're building your sentence starting from your native language, you naturally end up pulling that language's sentence structure into your English. This is exactly why so many learners produce sentences that are technically made of English words, but still sound strange, unnatural, or grammatically off to a native speaker. Every word might be correct, but the shape of the sentence still belongs to a different language. Here's a simple way to picture it. Imagine your brain as a highway system. For a native English speaker, when they want to describe a red piece of fruit, their brain sees it and travels straight down one road, directly to the word apple. No detours, no stops. When you translate, you're not taking that direct road. You're seeing the same red fruit, but your brain first exits onto a completely different road, the word in your native language, and only afterward does it travel back onto the English road to finally arrive at apple. That extra loop, every single time, for every single word, is exactly what's slowing you down. To become genuinely fluent, you need to eliminate that middle step entirely. You need to close that detour and build a direct, uninterrupted road from the idea itself straight to the English word. So, how do we actually build that direct road? We do it through something we can call direct association drills. The whole purpose of these drills is simple. Stop using your native language as a translator, and instead connect English words directly to real physical actions, feelings, and objects around you. The easiest place to start is a drill called object naming. Right now, take a look around whatever room you're sitting in. Your eyes will naturally land on different objects, one after another. Normally, your brain quietly names each of these in your native language, without you even noticing. What we want to do is interrupt that habit, on purpose. Look at an object and immediately say its English name out loud, with no detour, no pause, no translation in between. Don't look at the flat surface where you eat and think of the word in your native language first, then arrive at the word table. Instead, look at it and simply say table. Look at the wall and say wall. Look at the window and say window. Try doing this as quickly as you can for about a minute. And if you come across an object and you genuinely don't know the English word for it, don't stop to look it up in a bilingual dictionary. Just skip it and keep moving to the next object. Speed and momentum matter more than completeness here. Once that starts to feel easy and automatic, you can upgrade to a slightly more advanced version, called action naming. Throughout your day, whenever you perform a simple physical action, name that action directly in English as you're doing it. When your hand touches a door handle, don't think of the action in your first language first. Just say open. When you sit down in a chair, say sit. When you take a sip of water, say drink. Practicing this daily forces your brain to build a direct connection between the physical world around you and the English language itself. Slowly, you're teaching your mind that English doesn't need your native language standing behind it as a translator or a safety net. English can simply exist on its own, directly connected to your real, everyday life. Now let's talk about the second powerful tool for breaking this habit, something called image word association. Think about how most people study new vocabulary. Usually it's a flashcard, or an app, or a simple list. On one side, the English word, something like scared. On the other side, the translation, in your native language. Every single time you study this way, you're actually reinforcing the exact habit we're trying to break. You're training your brain, once again, to reach for your native language first, instead of connecting the English word directly to the feeling or concept it actually represents. So here's what needs to change. From now on, when you make flashcards or learn new vocabulary, stop writing your native language on the back entirely. Use an image instead. Let's say you're learning the word enormous. Instead of writing the translation for very big in your first language, go find an image, maybe a massive elephant standing next to a tiny toy car, and place that image on the back of the card instead. When you look at that flashcard, your brain absorbs the visual idea of extreme size and connects it directly to the word enormous. Your native language never even enters the picture. Now, for more abstract words, ones that are hard to capture in a single image, use simple English-only definitions instead, or a short example sentence. If you're learning the word relieved, you might define it using easier English words you already know, something like the feeling of being happy when something difficult finally stops. Or you could sketch a small stick figure wiping sweat from its forehead, saying, "Phew!" This keeps your brain operating entirely inside the English zone, without ever stepping back into translation mode. Even when you're using simpler English to understand a more advanced English word, you're still practicing the core skill we're building here, thinking directly in English from start to finish. Now, let's be honest about something important. Breaking a translation habit that's been running in the background of your mind for years is not going to happen overnight. You've spent a lifetime using your native language to make sense of the world, so of course your brain will keep reaching for that familiar shortcut. That's completely normal, and it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but your brain works a lot like a muscle. If you keep feeding it translations, it will stay comfortable relying on them forever. But if you consistently force it to connect directly with English instead, it will adapt, and eventually, that direct connection becomes the new default. So here's a small, specific action step to start with today. Over the next 24 hours, every time you walk into a new room, whether it's your kitchen, your office, or even just stepping onto a bus, take exactly 30 seconds and name 5 objects around you, directly in English. Move quickly. Skip translation entirely, and if you're alone, say the words out loud. Start cutting out that middle step today, and pay attention to how much smoother, faster, and more natural your speech starts to feel, sometimes within just a few days. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.